on, everybody? It's another episode of the Rent Network this Friday, the 16th of September. And why am I saying the date, 2022? Why am I saying the date today? Because David and I, who's over to my right, because he's always right, who's the calmer of the two of us, which is what we were laughing about moments before we hit the live button, because I was joking in a rant, I don't know, about a year plus ago, that we should start collecting money and busing these people that are called undocumented immigrants that are illegally entering the country, okay? Just so there's no racism involved in this conversation. And that we should bust them, raise money out of Texas from these border towns, jogging, David's memory. Because David, everyone thought I was crazy. And bust them right into where all of the left are saying it's an okay thing to do. And, the great governor of Florida, Ron Desantis, decided to play a card that has Oprah Winfrey even scratching her head because, this left liberal media think this is a great idea up until yesterday. David?
Well, no, they see that's where the mistake is. The media, our friends at the left, have been absolutely apoplectic about this whole business that Governor Abbott has been shipping migrants to Chicago, Washington, and New York. Mayors of these cities who are, by the way, African-American, have been upset because it disrupted their city. It's got a migrant crisis. And why did I single out African-American is because they keep talking about how they help minorities, that they're here to help the poor, the inflicted. And all of a sudden they showed up in their city and they're like, hell no, not my problem. Mr. Biden, we have an immigration problem. Now, this is all cool till yesterday. Yesterday, God bless Ron DeSantis, he flew migrants to Martha's Vineyard. Now, why is that funny? Is because
I'm laughing.
My first reaction was, yay, our unemployment problem is solved with our gardeners and our cleaning ladies and our work staff and whatever, because that's what very affluent people do. They love folks like this because it's an underground economy. It's wonderful. It's great. Ron DeSantis not only got completely ripped by the liberal media, and I'm going to single out one person in particular, and that's Chuck Todd at NBC. And the reason I'm upset at Chuck Todd is because when I was growing up, I was watching NBC. It was a 6:30 affair at my kitchen table, watching the news, and there was a credibility behind it. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. But Chuck Todd is the epitome of assholes, the epitome of jerks who love to say that they know better than toi et moi. And Chuck Todd ripped Ron DeSantis for a circus-like event. Now, let me remind Chuck Todd that he didn't make one word when AOC went to the border and cried on the fences. Let me remind Chuck Todd that he's been denying that there's an immigration problem. And now he calls Ron DeSantis' move a political stunt from someone who wants to run for the president of the United States. Duh, everybody here knows it. I'm in Miami. Everybody here in Florida is running around calling him President DeSantis. They want him to be president. Now, say what you want. The late night talk show hosts decided it's time to rip into Ron DeSantis. How dare they? From the ridiculous and moronic and somewhat anti-Semitic Trevor Noah all the way to Jimmy Kimmel, all made fun of Ron DeSantis' move. First mocking it and then going, yay, Martha Vineyard. Like I said, you've solved your employment problem. What I don't understand here is this double standard that is consistently thrusted at the right. Here is something that's happening. I want to tell you something, Stuart. I'm here in Miami. I'm like miles away from you, not that far. I was at a conference talking with, there were mayors here at this conference for the last couple of days, and they did nothing but praise the Biden-Harris administration. Most of them, not all of them, most of these mayors did it for all of the wonderful work done. And they were talking about two words: inclusion, right? You know, inclusion was the big thing, I should say. I didn't even say two words. Inclusion. That's all you wanted to hear was inclusion. And yet, when someone said, "What about immigration?" Boy, did they skirt the topic. Boy, did they run away from the topic. So, what do you think? Like, did Ron DeSantis pull a political stunt, or did he just shove it up the Dems' ass?
Yeah, is that a question? Because I think I think it's a statement. Listen, I don't care what political aisle you sit on, whether it's center, left, or right, whether you're my cousin Rupert or you're my friends from the north, south, east, west, Europe, around the world. The bottom line is that you got to be an absolute moron if you think that, you know, what was going on before by saying we have record amounts of deportations that dwarf the percentage. Remember, politicians like to give you the buzz. We are deporting, and make it factual. We are deporting from the United States a record amount of illegal immigrants. Now, it's a true statement. They are deporting a record amount, more than President Trump, more than President Obama, both Bushes, a Clinton, probably combined. But what they fail to tell you, and you're stupid because you don't ask the question, how many immigrants were allowed in the country this year illegally? How many were illegally last year, the year before, the year before, the year before? And if you actually look at the numbers and look at the percentages, it's like this. It's like this. You gotta be a moron not to understand that a political statement like this Jean, whatever bitch name on the pulpit, who's dumber than a friggin' doornail. Like I honestly, she talks and I need to turn it off. And guys, I got a monitor here. Look, it's right there, a big ass TV, and I watch news all day long. When she comes on, I have to go like this. I can't go like this, and I got to go like this. You know, at the end of the day, if we don't start listening to what they're saying and not writing our own scripts as to what they actually meant and look for the actual facts, we are truly doomed as a nation. The experiment that has gone perfectly well until Joe Biden decided to become president of the United States.
You know, you know what? Look, Stuart, we've been ranting, and I know there are people out there, some of our famous detractors will completely rip us apart by saying, you know, once again, you guys are nuts, and once again, and I'll hear this until I'm blue in the face.
Hang on, David. People say we're nuts. Hang on. We've talked about this issue. We talked about doing this actual stunt. We talked about Russia's, declared war, all in advance, on and on and on. David, we have talked about in advance the real truth before the media and before any of our friends actually. And you know what's really ironic? Those detractors, those people who actually are naysayers. Hi, Rupert. How are you? That actually think that we need to prove it. Hey, buddy, you think the government's doing a good job? Prove it. How many people? Do you know that over 1/3 of all residents in the latest survey out of San Francisco want to get the fuck out of San Francisco because of the open air drug environment? Like, are you out of your mind?
Hey,
like, really?
Hey, now, whoa. Again, you're doing what you usually do. You stray from the topic. So I'm going to bring you back to the topic. And one of the biggest frustrations that you're starting to hear in cities like San Francisco that you brought up very, apropos, is that they're sick and tired of crime. They're sick and tired of the drugs that are coming through the border. We have a major drug issue coming through Mexico. It's coming illegally into the United States more often than not with these criminals walking across the border. And the funny thing is that the Biden administration, and the Democrats for 4 years ripped Donald Trump apart for his terrible handling of the border. And then when they became president, like overnight, there was no border problem. There was no immigration issue. There was no crime. But yet in the city of San Francisco, there is a DA and there's an entire, population that's going to overturn things because they're fed up of illegal immigrants ruining their city with crime, with problems, with issues. And this is what both Governor Abbott and Governor Desantis were trying to convey. Stop dumping the problem on red states. Stop dumping the problem because, of course, except for California, right? Everybody along the South is a red state, right? From Florida all the way down to New Mexico, to Nevada. These are all red states. They're dealing with the immigration problem. They don't have the infrastructure. And the comical statement, this is the comical statement. You cannot send these migrants to Martha's Vineyard because they don't have the infrastructure to handle these migrants. Now I'm thinking, going, wait a second. Martha's Vineyard has money coming out of its God knows what. But a border town that can barely stand on its own 2 feet in Texas has to not take in 50 migrants, but has to take in hundreds and if not thousands a day. That's okay. But Martha's Vineyard, no. Chicago, New York, Washington, no. No, this has got to be a nationwide plea. Enough with this political banter, but you can't help yourself. And like I heard yesterday with the mayors, and the people who were with me yesterday at the show said, enough. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. That's all you heard. Like all you heard is just political statement after political statement. But when it came to brass tacks, strategy, execution, you could put a pin through it. No one was impressed at all by these speakers with their political statements, but not execution. And this is exactly what's happening with immigration. There's no strategy by the Biden administration. The strategy is screw the Republicans so we can get revoted into power, but not solve the problem that you and I are dealing with.
But again, David, like we have been saying in advance of all of this, if people don't start asking how are these responses and questions derived, we are truly doomed as a British, French world experiment. Yeah, I got to add Portugal. I got to add Spain. I mean, look at the United States. It is a melting pot. No one is saying no to immigration. We're all saying yes to immigration. But like conversely to Canada, that has a high bar of academic immigration protocol.
No, we have an immigration problem. We have the problem.
Legal immigration in Canada. By the day,
but Stuart, we have a migrant problem because those migrants that are crossing the border in Mexico, well, they make their way up the north and they've crossed illegally into Canada too. We have our own problem, but we're not going to get into that.
Listen. Canada's a larger landmass than the United States, and I think we should ship all 2 million people back up to Trudeau. I think Trudeau deserves all of them because you know what? Trudeau just seems to say, I think it's a good problem the Americas are having. I think we should ship them all up to Canada.
Listen,
I think we should park them in Toronto and Ottawa.
Stuart, I got to tell you that it's not
I just said to infuriate some Canadian people.
But the Canadians are just going to look at you like you're an idiot because you know what? The problem is we have a drug problem here. We have an illegal immigration problem. It's not anywhere near the volume of the United States. And while our landmass is the second largest in the world, our borders border the United States. So if, somebody wants to cross the border, remember how many times people were saying, I want to move to Canada. I'm going to move to Canada illegally during the Trump administration, blah, blah, blah. But going back to this immigration problem, Stuart, and this is the whole thing is Martha's Vineyard next summer will look beautiful. It'll look beautiful because all those 15 migrants, guess what they're going to be doing? Lawn maintenance, cleaning houses, and all these people are going to be super happy. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, with that nasty remark, I bid you a wonderful weekend. Hope you're all well. I'll be back in the Great White North looking at the border from the northern side of it. He'll stay here in Florida. And Stuart, let's wish everybody a good weekend.
Have an awesome weekend, everybody.